B, factors that could influence reliability of evidence. What do you think? Real quick, this is a common question. Common question. Let me hear from you first. That is true. One factor is the source of evidence. Not all sources of evidence can provide reliable evidence. Okay? Can provide reliable evidence. Source of evidence. Evidence obtained from external independent sources such as bank confirmations, customer statements, creditors' confirmations are generally considered more reliable than evidence obtained from internal sources, say from management representations or internally generated sources. The reason is just because of potential biases or manipulation of internal information. So that is a point. Gaspard? Nature of evidence. Nature of evidence. What do we mean by nature of evidence? Nature of evidence. We may have documentary evidence. We may have evidence from interviewing, okay, verbal. So documentary evidence like invoices, contracts, bank statements are more reliable than oral evidence like inquiries of management, inquiries from employees, because candidates, documentary evidence is less susceptible to changes in memory or even interpretation. You may interview a manager and he'll tell you that I was misquoted. That is not what I meant. But if it is evidence that is documented, then that is more reliable as compared to oral evidence. So that's the meaning of nature of evidence. Can I have another point? Effectiveness of internal controls. Effectiveness of internal control is a factor that could influence reliability of evidence, and that is pretty obvious. The evidence that is obtained from an entity with strong internal controls is generally more reliable than evidence obtained from an entity with weak internal controls, because strong internal controls provide assurance about the accuracy and completeness of the information. You understand? Yes. So that's why when auditing, you need to evaluate the effectiveness of internal controls. If it is weak, then you may need to conduct substantive audit procedures, because the information that is generated by weak internal controls cannot be relied upon. You understand? Then another factor is, you can say, auditors' direct knowledge. How is auditors' direct knowledge a factor that could influence reliability of evidence? Now, the evidence that is obtained directly by the auditor, and that could be through physical examination, could be through observation, or even recalculation of the ratios and other financial information. Such information that is obtained directly is generally more reliable than evidence that is obtained indirectly or evidence that is obtained through what we call inference. Right? Auditors' direct knowledge. Another factor is timeliness. Timeliness is a factor that could influence reliability of evidence. That is to mean that evidence obtained closer to the date of the event or transaction that is being audited is generally more reliable than evidence that is obtained after a significant time lapse because of the risk of errors or even the risk of changes in information that increases over time. There's that risk of errors in information that comes by long periods of time. So these are 5 factors that could influence reliability of audit evidence. Reliability of audit evidence. 5 factors. Source of evidence, nature of evidence, effectiveness of internal controls, auditor's direct knowledge, and timeliness of the event or date of the event or transaction that is being audited.